From Courtside the Virtual Hardwood, it's the NLSC Podcast, episode number 391. Andrew with you once again. I am Andrew in the forum and Andrew NLSC on Twitter. My co-host is Derek. You know him in the forum as Deeper3, and he is Deeper384 on Twitter.
I'm happy to be here again. I wanted to kick off the show, actually, and talk about the NLSC NBA Live 10 tournament that we've been running now. I think the first games were played on, I want to say, August 28th. And you had your first two games of your first round series against B-Train, NLSC user B-Train. And, I heard they went well.
They did. It's very refreshing, actually, to have no input lag at all, which is not to say that I don't enjoy playing with you and others. It has been our kick. It's been so great. A lot of people, more and more people getting into it all the time. The games with B-Train were fun and competitive. We both pulled out and had double-digit wins at the end. Spoilers. But in any case, they were very competitive games, very fun, very clean. There was a moment where he got a very unfair backcourt violation, so I got one as well to give the ball back to him, which is something that you and I have done for each other at times as well. Just the kind of thing you can do with a smaller community tournament that you don't see in the online scene. But yeah, playing with somebody else in Australia, that input lag was not there at all. It was very much like playing somebody locally, like on the same console, sitting next to you on the couch. So I was actually able to get a taste of what it's like to not be in a country that's isolated and has connections to the rest of the world that are still 10 years behind or something like that. It's 1-to-1, so it's going to be I'm going to have to bring it because he's learned how he's picked up Page's shooting form now, and that's a real problem for me with the Bulls and not so many outside gunners because of course they lost Gordon that year before. The season before was his last in Chicago, and he's moved on to Detroit in the 2010 rosters. So, yeah, I'm going to have to bring it moving forward.
Ben Gordon, I know you love Ben Gordon.
Yeah.
He was also one of my favorites to watch, too. I was a fan of Ben Gordon, that epic series with the Celtics. I do want to point out, we really lucked out with B-Train living in Australia and being able to, because I had to redo the bracket to make sure you had a first-round matchup with a great connection. And I was able to match you up with B-Train in the first round on the same side of the bracket as me, and we know that it works well when you connect with me. So if I'm to get by Ermoli, I would be playing you in the second round, and then you'd still have a good connection. But, we really lucked out with that. And he seems like a great guy as well, and it seems like you guys had really good sportsmanship, and it was a really good couple games. I can't believe how smooth everything has gone with this tournament and how great the games have been and how awesome all the users have been as far as sportsmanship goes and whatnot. You've watched the highlights that I've sent over from games between Sluggy Sports and Q. That series is now over. Q has moved on to the second round. He won 3-0 in that series. You saw the games from Manny live in Cavs 4872. That series right now is 2-1 Cavs 4872, who's using the Cavs, and Manny who's using the Jazz. So Cavs are up 2-1. And you've seen those highlights. My God, is it entertaining? Like, the games are entertaining.
No doubt. And people will say, oh, look, older game, older animations, and certainly the animation variety in Live 10 is not like 2K21, but they still look pretty good for the time, and they still hold up pretty well. And it's not just the fancy animations or the... and certainly that's important moving forward, and that was a problem, and has been a problem with Live as it attempted to come back on the past generation, as we've said so many times. But the moments and the back and forth and making those big dunks, those poster dunks on defenders and making those big plays when it matters most, the context, which is what we talk about with the NLSC Top 10 Plays of the Week that you curate as well. It's those moments and the overall, the bigger picture, if you will, of the game and what they mean to the game to make those highlights. But just the way you put them together and the games that people are playing and with that back and forth and that competitive spirit. And yes, I absolutely have to give it to the community on this one because the game is... Live 10 holds up well. We've talked about how much we've been impressed and how it's been our retro kick for so long this year, a sustained retro basketball gaming kick for it. And we've talked about how great Parsec is. But what really makes it is the people participating, and the goodwill and the good sportsmanship and the excitement, the enthusiasm, the just having fun, which is what it's all about. And it's kind of a lost art in the days of grinding up a player and microtransactions, and here we go, ragging on that again. But it's true, that pure fun enjoyment of playing virtual basketball in a basketball video game is what it should be all about. And we're seeing that in the tournament. And look, maybe that's tooting our own horn with this, for look what we've created. But honestly, I think this shows this is what people want. And this is why it has sometimes 2K Online scene being so toxic, how it's falling short. You can see that people want to play each other and have great times on the virtual hardwood. And it shouldn't be about grinding ridiculously long to have fun.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing how much fun can be had with that human versus human experience, without the grind, without the artificial boosts, without wearing a headset and those toxic attitudes and all of that stuff. Like, you're seeing what it can be like.
In a 12-year-old game,
feels like
in a 12-year-old
game, right? Yeah, it's a real game, and it feels like a real game often, real competition, and it's a 12-year-old game. And look how much fun these guys are having. I showed you, and you're in the chat, and some of the comments from Manny Live and Cavs 4872 from their games, talking about, oh my God, this is such a great game, and wow, what a series, and they're talking about like plays during the game, things that happened, and to wanting to have a blooper reel from the crazy stuff that's happened in their series. I mean, Darren Williams went for 53 points on Cavs 4872, and Manny won that game, game 2. And Cavs 4872 is such a good sport about it. Like, he was like, I couldn't stop Darren Williams. You played amazing with Darren Williams. That's awesome. He went for 44 points with Darren Williams the next game. Q was averaging 37.5 points per game through the first 2 games in the Lakers versus Heat series versus Sluggy Sports. And Sluggy Sports was a great sport about it, about Kobe being great in that series. It's just, this is what people really want, right? They don't want that grind. They don't want all the artificial boosts, the frustrating mechanics, all the canned animations, all the really frustrating, like, sluggish movement that happens so often, the slow motion side by sides. They don't want that. Right? It's just been kind of pushed on people, and now that's what the online gaming scene is now in NBA 2K, right? But man, like, watching these games, luckily, so just so people understand, I've been hosting all the games outside, so every series outside of Andrew and B Trains, because they're going to have a direct connection. That's what works the best. They're both in Australia, and B Train sends me the full games, and I cut up the highlights. So that's how that works. But I've had a front row seat to the full games between Sluggy Sports and Q, and Cavs 4872 and Manny Live, and obviously to my own games with Ramoli. And it's just been an amazing tournament, and everybody's just been having so much fun. And it's just inspired me to do so many more tournaments after this.
I'm looking forward to that as well. We've already talked about Jam being the next game, Jam 2010, most likely. Although we do love On Fire Edition and have some more stories about that to talk about this week. That's logistically, that's a bit tougher because it needs to be owned on the console, the original console, or indeed the 360 or Xbox One, and streamed using the companion app to the PC and Parsec. So a few extra steps, and of course you actually can't be using an emulator for that, so it's a bit tougher. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. We'll certainly be testing out some games and then put it out to the community as to what they'd like to try, and we'll see what works for everybody. But once again, the goodwill has just been fantastic, the sportsmanship. And look, everyone's competitive. We can all have moments of frustration. I can certainly attest to that. And, in sessions that we've played, sometimes I can get frustrated if it's, if it's a bad day or you just haven't eaten anything and you're a bit hangry, as the case may be. And of course, we're all competitive. We want to win. But, I'm there playing B-Train, and we're going back and forth with Rose and CP3. And it's just this great duel. And he's doing a lot of stuff with CP3 and just... I'm not, having real trouble containing CP3, a young CP3, as you would expect. And I'm not getting, this is terrible, and he's cheating and cheating. He wasn't. He was playing to the strengths of the game and CP3. And I'm like, man, what am I going to do? Like, I'm in my mind, I'm strategizing, okay, what is my counterpunch? I'm sure he was doing the same with Rose as well on the other end. And then he starts hitting threes with Pager in game 2, and I'm like, okay, wow, I'm in trouble. What am I going to do to counterpunch this? And it was this great, as I say, back and forth. And even though the scores weren't close at the end of both games, I think we both played the games we won. We both played very well. The winner played very well, and certainly the loser put up their best fight as well. It's just one of those things. Sometimes you're not making the shots. You've been there with Dirk. You've been screwed over with Dirk in Live 10 before. It's just the way it goes sometimes, as in real life. But it wasn't frustrating like, oh, and this person, this. You're not being that person flipping the board in Monopoly. You know what I mean? You're trying to think of that strategy to win, and you're like, okay, man, he's CP3. What am I going to do? And Pager, what am I going to do? And you're coming up with a strategy, and it's fun. It's not a frustrating, oh, this person with an OP build online is just cheesing the curry slide behind the screen and greening a 3 from 40 feet out over and over again. It's this person is using these players to the best of their ability, these real players to the best of their ability. What am I going to do to counter this and try and win? And moving forward, I'm going to have to bring it. I'm going to have to bring it, plain and simple.
It's the knowledge of the other fun part of this, as opposed to like that online toxic scene that you're talking about, is you got to know the players, and you got to know your team, and you got to try to use them to their strengths. And there's so much more enjoyment for me, tenfold, in using a team and playing against like trying to use all 5 players in conjunction the right way, right? Like there's like for me that's a better experience. Like, one person controls the team, the other person controls the other team, and you go at it. I've never been into the whole I use one player, right, the whole time, and just with other human players around me, but just use one player the whole time, and that's what I control. Like, so for me, I like the idea of doing like 5-on-5. One person controls a team, another person controls a team. So I just wanted to point that out. Number 2, how great has Parsec been?
Oh, it's been fantastic. We can't praise it enough.
Are you kidding? Like, I can't believe we didn't find this out earlier. As far as like how great this program is, I listed all the people I've connected with. I think it's around 18 now. And you're included on that list because we've had a great connection overall. Like we've had some great games on NBA Live 10. We've played NBA Jam OFE off of my Xbox. We've played NBA Jam 2010. We've played some other games. All 18 people I've had a great connection with. Everybody that I've tried to connect with, it's just had a great connection, and it's been so fun. And if for some reason when I hosted, the other person had maybe a little bit of input lag, we flipped it and had them host, and then that connection was fixed. For example, when Sticky Fingers, I think it would probably work better now, but when Sticky Fingers connected with me and I was hosting, it wasn't that great for him on his end. So we switched it and had him host, and then we played a game, and it was really good for both of us, and I even posted the highlights of that. We were using the NBA 2K19 Classic Teams rosters. It's just, I am blown away with how it's a free application, with just how well it's worked. And Christ, I mean, we've had now... We played NBA Jam Jam 2010, 4 users connected with me hosting on Parsec. And how amazing was that experience?
That worked great. I'm very surprising, especially seeing the struggles we had with Live 10, which there's more data, there's more packets going back and forth. So that's an issue with when you already have a connection issue to begin with, such as a connection from Australia to the rest of the world.
Yeah, I think that Australian connection.
No surprise, unfortunately.
Yeah, but NBA Jam 2010, it just worked great with 4 users connected to it. We played NBA 2K17, me, Ermoli, and Cavs 4872. We played 2K17, all 3 of us on the same team on blacktop. It worked beautifully. It just worked awesome. And I'm just doing this, and I'm like, how did we not find this out before? Like, why weren't we doing this before? This is amazing. So I've been just trying to connect with everybody, but definitely, major props to those at Parsec. Those who worked on that.
And again, we're not getting paid to say this. They're not getting any money for the program, which is incredible. So we just want to put it out there because we've had so much fun with it, and we know how much fun you can have with it. So we just want to let people know about it and continue to give them props and to promote it in our own way, because as we're having fun with it, and those videos that you've been putting together. You can see them on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center, of course, the NLSC's YouTube channel, and check out yours, D4 3, on YouTube for additional highlights that you've been doing, of course, with your brothers and whatnot, and other connections that you've had. It's just been a blast to play all these games. And again, tournaments going great, and thank you to everybody who's participating, and B-Train for being a great opponent so far, and it's going to be a great series the rest of the way, whatever happens. I'm not counting my chickens either. I'm going to have to bring it, as I said. It's been great for Live 10, absolutely.
Right, so people understand real quick, too, is so the first round is a 5-game series. Second round is a 5-game series, and then the finals is going to be a 7-game series. So that's kind of the structure right now. I did upload a really good video that I want people to check out. I actually lost this game to @bballvideogames on Twitter. He's a big retro gamer like you and I. And I uploaded an NBA 2K10 gameplay video. Him and I connected over Parsec. We used the 96-97 mod, which is one of the best mods I've ever played. It's an amazing mod. The detail on that mod is unreal. The fight from the faces to the jerseys to the courts, everything is just an amazing mod. It comes with the NBA on NBC scoreboard. It's fantastic. So he had never played that mod before, and he was blown away by it. But we connected and we played, and I was using the Bucks with young Ray Allen, and he was using the Trailblazers, and just the highlights from that game are unreal, and NBA 2K10 has also aged incredibly well. It was a really loose, fun gameplay experience, and I think that if you haven't checked out that gameplay video, like he said, go to my D4 YouTube channel and check that out, because the highlights came out great.
And of course, the top 10. It's great to see the love for the top 10 that you do. Of course, getting that appreciation on YouTube and of course on social media as well, on Twitter and Facebook. But it's great to see the response to that. Once again, a lot of goodwill there. Nobody's upset about ranking or complaining about the ranking at all. They just loved seeing the highlights and everybody else's highlights as well. There's that really cool and one street ball highlight from you and the Live King in there this week, which I definitely always recommend checking out the top 10, of course, but you'll want to check that out. Amazing flurry for the number 1 play. It's dunking frenzy, which is really, really cool to see. Just love the response to all the video content that we've been doing, as well, of course, the articles and everything else that we normally do, but the branching out into some more video content, which you've been spearheading, it's been really great.
Yeah, I'm really loving the top 10, and thanks for all the submissions and all the people that are getting into it. I do get a lot of submissions, whether it comes through Twitter or from the NLSC via private message or anything like that. And I love that people are getting into it. I think, we talked before the call, and I said to you, I think what people dig is watching other people, having fun. And they can see through those highlights that make it into the top 10, whether it's, two human users teaming up or humans against each other or whatever, they can see fun. And that's always going to click with people. And so I think that the best thing about the top 10 is, people are seeing that, other people are having fun. And it's not always with the new game. They're having fun breaking out those older games, those older fun games, the games that had a little bit less frustration, a little less toxic, all of that stuff. So I really enjoy putting the top 10 together every week, and I can't believe that this week was week 16. How time flies.
Absolutely, this year, no question.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I enjoy it. So keep sending me your highlights. That's been great. Oh, I wanted to mention one more thing on Parsec, just for those who don't understand its capabilities. I've had multiple people now connect with me when they use a MacBook. Like they have
people video games, yeah. He's a Mac user, yeah.
Yeah. And what people need to understand is, no, those people can't host on Parsec, but they can connect with you. And I've had amazing experiences with people like Cavs4872 at Basketball Video Games, I believe, has a MacBook as well. He connected with me last time, I think, on it. People using Wi-Fi. Multiple people have connected with me on using just Wi-Fi, not wired in, and they've had an amazing experience with very little or no input lag. So pretty amazing stuff. But no, thanks for bringing up the top 10. I think it's been going really well.
Oh, it continues to delight all of us. I'm always interested to see what makes the cut. And of course, you get to see it before anybody, naturally, since you're putting it together, but then I get that second look at it in the community as it goes up. So it's always very cool and highlights what you were talking about, which is having fun with games. And it sounds like such a maybe a cheesy or an obvious thing to talk about, but again, with all that focus on the grind and the online scene, that toxicity that comes with the OP builds, what camera angle you're using? Oh, you're using broadcast camera? Yeah, because that's what I like. So there's so much that's going into playing these games the quote-unquote right way and having this competitive meta and all that stuff that goes into the online scene that makes it gatekeeping and elitist, then the recurrent revenue mechanics. The reason that we do bang on about these things is that we can see that how much they've actually affected fun, and that's a shame. And so we're trying to do what we can to bring it back with tournaments like this and celebrate gaming. Look, we're always going to criticize games, and look, we're going to be going through the 2K22 news shortly and giving our thoughts on that and what we're expecting to see next week when 2K22 comes out. But we do want to celebrate gaming as well and have fun with them. Our content ultimately, as much as we're going to have that constructive criticism, Derek, I've always wanted the NLSC's content to be a celebration and an enjoyment of games, of basketball games. Originally NBA Live, as we were the NBA Live Series Center, NBA Live fan site, but now as we've expanded to encompass the whole virtual hardwood, then we want to have those positive experiences and celebrate those and highlight those as well. You need to have both. There needs to be that balance.
Yeah, and I think one of the things is the NLSC has turned into such a modding destination that some of that stuff fell off. So, people seeing people having fun with the games, like playing the games. And, like you said, it became less about a celebration of basketball gaming. It became, like playing the games and like the history of the games and all of that stuff. And it became more about modding and a celebration of modding and less about gameplay. And I think that a balance can be achieved that celebrates both.
Oh yeah, modding's always going to be a big part of what we do, no question.
Yeah, and it's great. And by the way, I'm going to be getting. I'm going to get into modding again. With NBA 2K22, I said that. I'll probably be making faces right out of the gate. I would try to make some cyber faces and whatnot because I feel like I was getting a little bit better at it.
You're going to be making some more smoking faces.
I might make the mask again.
Terrible
or
Jim
convert
Carrey.
it or something
I did.
like that. That wasn't that bad. Yeah, for an Australian.
Yeah,
that wasn't.
I have a lot of an accent to overcome here. So
yeah, but yeah, no, I might do that again. But no, I think that we can find the right balance, and I think that with the top 10, and people seeing those highlights and wanting to submit highlights, and then seeing all the Parsec tournaments and the Parsec games and all of that stuff, it's really showing a celebration for video games and basketball video games and its history. And also, it kind of shows that we're not always negative, are we?
Oh, no.
We're not always... I want people to understand that is, sure, we give critiques and whatnot, but there's a reason why we do that. And I think that that's important feedback to get out as long as it's presented the right way. You got to understand that we love basketball video games. We love basketball video gaming, and look how much fun we're having with an older 12-year-old title right now in a tournament, with NBA Live 10. And all the videos that you've seen me upload, whether it be between NBA 2K10 or NBA Jam OFE or, Dan Marley going off in NBA Live 95, we love basketball video games. It's not like, I don't know, I've heard people say that, they've listened and they're like, oh, you guys are too negative. There's a reason for that sometimes when it comes to the newer titles.
Sometimes you do have to, the news isn't always great. And certainly the news deserves to be critiqued, or the previews deserve to be critiqued and taken with a grain of salt, because and we're seeing a lot more people on Reddit and social media. It's not just bashing or hating. They're realizing that we've heard some of this stuff before in the developer blogs, and you feel that cynicism and that skepticism come through, and it's healthy to a certain extent, But we don't want to just be the old man yelling at cloud. Sometimes we want to be the old man waving friendly way at the cloud. We do want to have that fun as well. And to that point, before we get to the 2K22 news, I do want to circle back to On Fire Edition, because we had another fun session where the West was won, shall we say. We beat all the Western challenges. Well, not the Platinum challenges yet. We'll get to those in time, I'm sure. But we did play some more On Fire Edition Road Trip. My favorite moment from that, Derek, was breaking the backboard with Sean Kemp. Another fantastic game, fun game with the Sonics, and there on Team Fire, the backboard just exploding with Sean Kemp. We have broken the backboard a few times before, and I think the first time we did it, we was with the Sonics, but it was Peyton breaking it, which was still nice, but it was like, this doesn't feel quite right. It should have been Kemp. But that was such an amazing moment because we've been trying for it. We've gone, okay, let's have, how many dunks and alley-oops can we do? Because we know it's usually around about 30 that triggers that in the fourth quarter, that triggers the backboard breaking, because it's kind of random. But we got it to happen. It was a great play, and yeah, loved it.
Play that led.
It was
a great play that led to it. I believe that we had a defensive stop. I have to rip that out of the long video and actually put that and save that into a folder, possibly post it on Twitter as well and maybe YouTube. But no, I believe it was a defensive stop and a give and go, and then the alley-oop that broke it, and it was a really loud break. It was a really loud dunk by Kemp that did it. And
on Team Fire as well, so it's the blue flame.
Right, yeah. I mean, we have a really good system going with me using a guard or a wing and you using a big guy, and that works with Julius Erving and Daryl Dawkins on the 76ers and Garnett and Ray Allen or Bird or whatever when we use the Celtics. Yeah, it's been – how fun has OFE been, through the road trip? And, we beat the West. And, again, I don't want to keep talking about how great Parsec is, but pretty awesome that we can do this. We did have a – small issue when I tried to have us choose a different team. And I was like, you know what? Andrew's a Bulls fan. Pippen's on the Bulls. Let's use Rose and Pippen. And I was like, I'll use the guard and you use Pippen as the guy that can somewhat protect the rim and then also sky for dunks. And it didn't work as well as I had hoped.
No, I was holding back a little bit, not having that big. Wasn't as aggressive as we were talking about before the show. So it didn't work out. It was also the Silver Challenge, so it stepped it up. We were trying out a new duo on the step up from Bronze, which is sometimes a noticeable step up depending on the team that you're facing and any remix conditions that are added in Road Trip, of course. But like you said when we were talking about it before the call, we probably could have won a rematch, but we decided to go back to one of our duos that, which was the 76ers, I believe, at that time, that we know our strategy works with.
Yeah, we kicked butt with Irving and Dawkins. You're really, really good at blocking. Oh, wait, I want to point something out before we even talk about that. Your block spree with Sean Kemp was unreal.
That was very satisfying. Very.
That was that a silver or gold challenge? Wasn't that the gold challenge?
Oh,
I can't remember.
It might have been silver because I was on fire, so I could just block shots. I could goaltend because I was on fire as well. So.
That timing, you had, in that third quarter, you must have had like 12 or 13 blocks in that one quarter. I don't care. I don't care I don't care if that's an exaggeration. I felt like you were blocking absolutely everything. And I think there was one possession where you had like 5 blocks. And it was super impressive.
We forced a shot clock violation on that one.
Yeah, which is hard to do in that game, to force a shot clock violation, because you really have to keep blocking them. We have a good system going because I average like 15 to 30 steals a game. And you get the blocks at the rim, and it works really well. But yeah, no, I thought that was impressive. I got to get those highlights up at some point. But we're pretty good with Irving and Dawkins. That works really well.
They've been our go-to apart from Kemp and Peyton, and of course we do have, as you said, Bird and KG on the Celtics since we've unlocked Bird. But man, what about the Twin Towers from San Antonio? Duncan and Robinson were they were tough. We got them in the second game, but man, that was close. That was a tough one.
So in the first game, that was a gold challenge, and we went against David Robinson and Tim Duncan, and it was the challenge where threes are only worth 2 points, but dunks and two-pointers are worth 3 points. So we were like, you know what? I mean, we'd be dumb not to use Irving and Dawkins here. So we used them, but I swear about 90% of our dunk attempts were blocked in that first gold challenge game. And we lost by like 15 to 20 points, and that's not like us because we usually beat the gold challenge now on the first try, or at the very least the second try. But then we were like, you know what, we'll rematch them, and we won in the second game surprisingly against them. But boy, Duncan and Robinson are a force. They block so much at the rim; it's absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, it stands to reason. They were quite a duo, even though Robinson was on the downside of his career, obviously at that point. But we did we prevailed in that challenge, and we will be moving on to the East challenges now, of course, and then I suppose at the end of the Platinum. But also, how fun is it when we're up big, and especially on the easy challenges when it's really the bronze challenges where it's about just having some fun and just destroying the CPU, and then pulling out the trick shots, pulling out those shots, and
me using Hugo the Hornet and hitting that shot sitting down from 3.
Yep, or the big wind up, like you're winding up a punch, in an old Keystone Cops movie or something. Yeah,
these are so smooth. There's so many nice touches to NBA Jam on Fire Edition. It's such a great game. I've really enjoyed it, and I've been connecting with other people on that and NBA Jam 2010. But I did want to bring up something really quick, though. Yes, I did get to use Hugo the Hornet, and you know how much I love using mascots.
Oh, yeah.
And I will continue to use mascots. But I want to touch on something modding-wise, because, yes, the NLSC is still a lot about modding. I am so damn impressed with the mods that were made for games like 2K10 and 2K11. The 91-92 mod for NBA 2K11 and the 96-97 mod for NBA 2K10. Listen, we didn't have crazy modding resources and at that time when those games were, in their cycle. And I'm just looking at these mods, and these are some of the most complete roster mods I've ever used in my entire life. They are so amazing, and I just want to applaud the creators of those mods and say thank you, basically, because we've had so much fun with them, and I'm starting to connect with people using those mods too, using Parsec and whatnot, and they're blown away by them. I'm just so impressed with the modding community.
Yeah, a lot of early stuff, and again, hate to kind of put that negative spin on it. Here I go, old man yelling at cloud, but at the time we were still very close to our roots as a modding community, so there wasn't that people trying to make money off it as well. So there was a bit more goodwill in the community about that, and that is something that we're trying to balance out and counteract and encourage the old ways. And if people want to put tip jars and everything, understand that's fine, obviously. And look, we've got tip jars and things on the site to help out with the hosting costs and everything. So look, I'm not going to be too hypocritical about that. But we do see some practices in the modding community in recent years, probably over the last 5 or 6 years, that haven't been healthy for the modding community, and has kind of caused those rifts and a lot of problems with people wanting payment and everything for it. But back then, just the beauty of making those complete mods and just doing it for the love of the artistry.
Can I just point that out? The complete part, accurate, like the attention to detail on them.
Oh yeah,
it just blows me away, because you can tell. Listen, when you play a mod, you can usually tell how much heart was put into it.
Oh,
right?
For sure. Yeah.
Like real true effort. And I'm playing these, and I'm just like, these mods stand out as absolutely unbelievable. They're just amazing. And I can agree with that. I think that I think modding at times can get very toxic today. But when I joined the community back in 2000 and in 2014 was when I was super active, it wasn't really like that. You know what I mean? I feel like it was more fair and balanced, and there wasn't as much of the, PM me for payment, PM me for this request, oh, you want a password? Well, you'll have to donate to get that. Like there wasn't that type of stuff going on.
I've said that in articles, and I've said it because I don't like the use of passwords in general, and the reason I've always hit back against it is I've said, PM me for the password or DM me for the password is only a few steps away from send me a few bucks for the password. And we're starting to see that. And
right.
We will shut it down. Look, we don't want to drive talented modders away from the community, and we understand that people are going to use other platforms to do all kinds of practices that we don't agree with. Look, we have to have some principles. We're going to abide by those principles so that we can continue on with it. We don't get shut down or in legal trouble. And so just to preserve fairness for the community, because not everybody has money to pay for mods. And there's a lot of reasons why we don't allow charging for mods, and why, because there's always those people, and you know this very well, Derek, people that say people deserve to be compensated for their time for making mods, which is funny because then people will say, I don't want people editing my hard work. And like, aren't you doing that to the work of the developers, technically? And I say that as someone who's created a lot of mods over the years, we have to also keep in mind what we are doing here. Just putting it out there.
Exactly. listen, if you want to make money making mods, make amazing mods that are free and open source to the community and get noticed. How about that? Maybe you get noticed by 2K. Maybe you're Razer, right? Maybe you're the next Razer. Maybe you get noticed by EA Sports, and maybe they need somebody in art, for an upcoming game in 2052. I don't know. Like the thing is that you can still aspire to make something, becoming, be part of video games or something like that, or like be noticed by 2K or EA Sports. You can do that by making great open source mods. Is it worth it doing it the way that they're doing it? Right? Like it's not worth it, in my opinion. Like I don't understand it. And a lot of these people, I've talked to many modders, and they use things like AdFly, right? Yeah. And they use these ad sites. They sign up for them, and they get paid per click. And these guys sometimes make just a few bucks. Is it worth it? Is that few bucks that you're making worth it to put the end user out, and frustrate them? And all of that stuff is just. I have a lot of feelings about this, but unfortunately, the community has moved in that direction of. Yeah, there's still a lot of great people who make great free open source mods, but there is a fair amount of people that are doing whatever they can to make a buck off of their mods. And let's put it that.
And look, I do agree, and this could be a whole show, obviously, that we could discuss these issues, and perhaps we will at some point in the future when we don't have some more news to talk about this week, obviously. But people talking about deserving payment for mods and earning and everything, I understand the sentiment. As somebody who has made a lot of mods for free over the years, and will continue to do so as I get back into it, I understand where they're coming from. But when you talk about deserving payment for what you've done, for your work and everything, are you also going to pay for a platform to share those mods? Because whether it's the NLSC, Discord, or Facebook group, you are using a free service. Are you not? You are not paying anything to use the NLSC, as I don't want you to. I want us to be free. Or Facebook or Discord, all that is free. Are you paying for the tools you're using? Are you using a free graphics program such as applications such as GIMP or Paint.net? Or indeed a pirated copy of Photoshop, as I'm sure some people in the community have over the years? And also, are you paying for any of the assets you use? If you're just grabbing photos and everything off the internet, and you're using a lot of other people's likenesses, are you paying for likenesses of players that aren't in the game that you're putting in there? You're doing a lot of stuff where other people could be asking for payment for what you're doing, and you want no overheads, but you want 100% profits. I'm sorry, that's not the way it works in the world of business or in commerce. So that's another thing to think about, that you want everything for free, but you want people to pay you. Think about how fair that is. That's what I'll say for now.
Right, yeah. I mean, we could talk about this for a while.
We should, at some point.
At some point, right, exactly. But anyway, I do want to point out that there's been a lot of great mods, and there's still a lot of great work being done in the community. We've talked about, like, the 2K19 rosters. We've talked about the free open source Thundershack rosters for 2K20. We've talked about the rosters that have been, that they started on 2K17 for updating it to like the 2021 season. I believe, what was it? 707 was actually who started that. He was working on that roster for a while. But no, there's still a lot of good mods being made and open source mods and people who aren't acting out like we just discussed. And so I do want to commend those people.
Absolutely. And again, it is important that we commend the people who are doing what we feel the right and just thing. So no, absolutely. And more power to you, and thank you for being a part of our community. And for other people, please do think about what we said, because all snark aside and accusations aside, we do this for the health of the modding community. And we do want people to be fair with each other about this, and to us as the hosts and to the community at large. So please do think about the other side of the coin as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. I will say again though, connect with me on Parsec if you haven't already. If you want, if you have a PC and have always wanted to try some of the mods that you never were able to get your hands on, or maybe you don't own NBA 2K10 and want to connect with somebody who does. Connect with me so we can play some 2K10 and 2K11 so I can show you how amazing these mods are.
Indeed, and it's great to showcase these old mods as well moving forward. But as we move forward to NBA 2K22, coming out September 10th, which is next week, it's been an abbreviated preview season, as we've talked about before, very rushed, a big info dump this week. But we started out with a gameplay reveal trailer, Derek, and I have to admit, I can't get excited for these because they're always the same thing. They're cinematic angles, gameplay from cinematic angles. They got cool effects and everything, nice production values. I don't want to downplay the work that has gone into them. I've tried my hand at mixes and reels and things like that. I certainly appreciate anyone who's putting in the effort, and it's an area that I'm still trying to polish my skills at. So I'm certainly not about to look at this. This is what passes for a reel these days. No, it's not about that. It's just about it doesn't excite me because it's cinematic. And even raw gameplay, Derek, doesn't excite me that much. And there have been some gameplay leaks and video leaks this week as well. But nothing really compares to getting the game in your hands, which we're not going to do because there's no demo this year. So it's one of those things where between cinematic trailers and developer blogs, my skepticism is not going to go away. I'm still going to take everything with a grain of salt until I get the game in my hands and I experience it for myself. But, I mean, it's a nice enough trailer, but I just can't get excited about it anymore.
Like I said on the forum and on Twitter, that trailer could easily be labeled 2K21 cinematic replays with updated rosters work in progress. Like, it could easily be labeled that and be 100% believable. Because the lighting and overall the graphics, all of that stuff. In the trailer, Lonzo Ball is with the Pelicans and Josh Richardson is with the Mavericks. So that's why I said work in progress, updated rosters, because they're not updated.
But he's also on the Bulls, so they kind of didn't. They're using some old footage and new footage on that one as well.
Yeah, it's very strange. But yeah, nothing impresses me about that. It doesn't tell us anything about the gameplay. Nothing. Nothing new. The 8-second video that was shown of actual NBA 2K22 gameplay, you could see it was real because it was the new updated scoreboard. Actually did the opposite of intrigue me because the players are skating and floating around the court again, and they're kind of just like running into each other, it looks like. It did the opposite of get me excited. It looks to me like player control is just going to be another issue for me again, and the players are going to feel not like real life, like the way they move and all of that stuff. So I'm not. No, I mean the gameplay trailer and that 8-second video didn't do anything for me.
I mean, hopefully there's going to be some improvements apparent when we're actually on the sticks, but at the same time I'm tempering my expectations. I know it's cliche to say something like NBA 2K21.5, but at the same time I'm not expecting that huge leap. If I'm proven wrong, I'll be quite pleasantly surprised. I'm not going to say there's absolutely no way that there will be pleasing improvements, because looking down the gameplay blog, which we'll be getting to in a moment, there could be. If everything is as good as advertised, then it certainly could be, but to that point, we have heard a lot of this stuff before. But yeah, seeing those leaks and seeing the gameplay trailer, I wasn't blown away. I wasn't expecting, this is definitely going to be something amazing and new. And last week's Friday 5, I should say now, but by the time most people are hearing this, was about the 5 stages of basketball game releases. And we always seem to have that cycle every single year where we forget about there's a lot of people who are cynical and skeptical, as we are, sometimes to an unhealthy degree, but mostly to a healthy degree, that it's all forgotten and we fall for the same the same marketing again. So it definitely is cyclical as much as the games and the previous seasons and the release cycles, everything like that. Very cyclical as far as the general opinions and reactions to games and forgetting about the lessons we've learned in previous years. So that is a concern I have, a skepticism that I have for 2K22, that it's not going to be this. Yeah, I'm keeping my expectations realistic, shall we say. But I do want to say, before we get into the blog, that the PA announcers trailer that revealed that every team is going to have their authentic PA announcer, and they've also brought in Tommy Edwards to do the classic Bulls teams. That That's a really nice touch. That is something that's been on the wish list for many years, and now they obviously have the storage space to do it on disks and hard drives. I will say, I mean, that is not. It won't make up for legacy gameplay issues. It won't fix those problems or problems with the online scene or anything like that. But that is really cool they've done that. I do have to say that's a very cool idea.
I was about to say, no, that's great, and it's going to sound awesome, I'm sure.
Indeed.
And it's an element of authenticity. But if the gameplay is frustrating and as unbalanced as it has been, then I'm not even going to want to put the game on.
It's moot. Yeah.
Yeah, and people aren't going to be like, oh, well, this is great, while they're frustrated with the gameplay. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, it is a great touch. But again, if I'm getting on the court and I feel like I'm sliding around and I'm watching and, we got the slow motion side-by-sides again, and there's the canned animations, and you're playing and the defense is just moving out of the way for you, and you just get complete red carpets to the hoop for no reason. Free open dunks, and hey, let's go wide on the fast break. We know we're just going to be able to run around the computer. Why not do that? You put teams on the floor, and you're like, why is this guy moving like a slug when he was really fast in real life? Like, with that stuff's going on, that's the stuff I care about. And honestly, and you've noticed this with the NBA Live 10 tournament and people connecting on Parsec with some of the older games, that's what matters the most to people. What matters the most to people is how good the game feels on the sticks. How fun it is to play.
100%. Look, the presentation is nice and important, as we can see in Live 10 because of the presentation atmosphere settings they brought in that year. But if the game wasn't fun to play, it really doesn't matter, because there's been a lot of games over the years, early 2000s, that have had something really cool with the presentation. You look at the ESPN Tonight, NBA Tonight series, had some pretty good presentation, and it's a very authentic presentation, but the gameplay itself is nowhere near Live or 2K at that time.
Yeah, I think the thing is that we've gotten to a point in basketball gaming where it's become less and less about what's actually happening on the basketball court.
Ironically.
I feel like, exactly. And I feel like that's kind of the way the NBA itself has gone in a lot of ways. Real basketball, which is sad as well.
I guess it kind of makes it sim in a way, in a twisted kind of way.
Right. Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, and that drives me absolutely nuts. One of the things in the updates and the dev blogs that drives me absolutely nuts, and I know someone like Rock will agree with me because him and I talked about this before, they added even more badges. And now there's 80 in NBA 2K22. And what people need to realize is what 80 badges means is 80 artificial boosts. And that's just more of the toxic stuff that is really hurting basketball video games and actually destroys the idea of actual skill gap, is all of these badges and all of these artificial boosts and all the canned moments and, bailing somebody else out who isn't skilled and allowing them to unrealistically go from one block to another and block a shot when they never would have been able to get there in the first place, but they got that fancy new badge, right?
Pogo, yeah.
So I'm reading the dev blog and I'm seeing the stuff about more artificial boosts, and I'm like, this is not what people want. This is not what the majority of gamers want.
Well, there's also things like the new Mouse in the House badge, which allows the taller players to dominate a shorter one. If a player has that size advantage and the skill advantage, the skills to make use of their size, which should be achieved by the physics engine and the height of the player and their length and their wingspan, I should say, and their ratings, do they really need a badge to represent that ability, or should that just be a thing that you can do with a talented big man scorer? Does it need a badge?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I don't understand it, and they're adding more and more layers into what's hurting basketball gaming.
A meta.
I think you can.
Yeah, it's the meta.
Yeah, it's the meta gaming. They are adding layer upon layer upon layer every single year and making it even worse and getting people even more frustrated, which is why you see, I sent you a video of the trailer. I think it was from IGN, right? It was IGN. So IGN posted the gameplay trailer, and it is a major red flag that video from IGN got at the time it had 1,000 likes and 1,000 dislikes. That is not a good ratio, people.
Very neutral response.
People are getting sick of the games. They're getting sick of the games that 2K is playing with them. They're getting sick of the scene, the online scene, and they just want to have fun with video games again. And unfortunately, this is what they're pushing. And, you know, they're pushing all of this, you know, the artificial boosts, the metagaming, all of that stuff. Man, it's just people are getting sick of it. They're really getting sick of it. And so are you and I.
Undoubtedly. And even you look at I summarized the blog. I posted it in the forum and on the front page and the bulletin there. So the goal with gameplay in 2K22 was to create a fun and competitive experience on the sticks with emphasis on skill-based offense and a genuine skill gap. Those are my words. That's my summary of the blog, but that is basically a summary of the introduction that Beluba put in that blog. A strong push was made to... Actually, before I get onto that, the overall goal. In theory, that's admirable, right? That's an admirable goal to have a fun and competitive experience on the sticks with an emphasis on skill-based offense and a genuine skill gap. That being the goal, yeah, that's where it should be. But we have heard that before. We've heard it before.
But nothing about it makes sense. They follow that up with the badge thing.
Indeed, yes.
It makes sense, Andrew. Listen, I don't trust Mike Wang. I don't trust Beluba.
A lot of people don't now. We're seeing more of that.
Trust him, right? I have no reason to trust him. Prove me wrong, Beluba. Sure, you know, not that you care what I say, probably, but you know, I do not trust him, and this is the reason why. I don't want to hear about skill gap. I'm so sick of the promises and so sick of the BS. How many times have we heard that they were going to touch up defense? Remember 2K18? They talked about improved defense.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Look what happened.
Yeah.
But you know, again, in this, they're like, we had Dazar on it and all of this stuff, and our resident X's and O's expert. I don't want to hear that anymore either. But the whole the entire section saying that it was the biggest defensive overhaul ever, that they worked on more realistic rotations and more realistic closing out and on ball defense and all of this stuff. I need to get my hands on the sticks and experience this before I don't believe any word of it yet.
Well, there's also talking about establishing a foundation. Wasn't it last year built from the ground up? That was the marketing hype. That was the tagline.
I don't know.
And that's the problem. You know, throwing the last game under the bus. When you've hyped it up and it sounds so false, and then you say, well, he said this last year. Why should we believe you this year when next year you're going to say the same thing? And it's not even a way of saying, look, we did our best for it last year, and this year we've taken it to a new level. We've had flat-out admissions that something that was in last year's game wasn't that good after it was specifically hyped up as being much better than it is. And it really just undermines the credibility of the blogs.
Right. I also got to point something out. One thing that I'm getting really sick of is them posting, them saying something in a blog and acting like it's new when it's recycled or something that they've done before. Like, they talked about the new dribbling system, right? And they were like, well, this year, you're not going to have the triggers. You're not going to be able to trigger just one size up or the size up. You're going to have to piece it together. You just did that like 2 years ago. Like, that was you're bringing it back like it's something new, but you tried that a couple years ago. People didn't like it as much. So you were like, okay, well, we're going to bring back the single button hold joystick up or whatever for the size up, and now you go back to it and you act like it's a new feature. That's not a new feature. Like, it's not new. They also said that they've worked on speeding up dribbling. That was in the blog. Why? Dribbling was so have you seen the NBA 2K21 the 2K League videos?
Yeah.
It's the most unrealistic, silly, stupid-looking dribbling I have ever seen. It is 100 miles an hour. It doesn't make sense. Human hands don't move that fast. It's impossible, like the way it looks. And they're talking about speeding up the dribbling even more. What? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Why is that something you're pushing or like a promoted enhancement? The dribbling looks ridiculous right now. It doesn't look ridiculous. It doesn't look real, and it doesn't feel right either. It feels out of control. It doesn't feel. I just don't understand some of this stuff.
Yeah, to your point, it's in the wording. if they had said, look, we've been trying some of these ideas before, and the problem is that you and I have good memories about this stuff, and that we are holding them accountable to this. There are a lot of people who think that that's taking it too seriously, and or you know how it is, recency bias. Anything that happened more than a year ago might have happened could have happened centuries ago for all it matters. So that is a problem that we deal with these days. If they'd come out and said, look, we tried this. This is an idea we've explored in the past. We've refined it. We listened to your feedback. Or if they said that we tried this last year, we heard community feedback, we hear you loud and clear. This is the direction we're going in based on your feedback. I could appreciate that more, because there'd be some honesty in that. They're admitting, hey, this idea that we tried, we thought it was a good idea. The community didn't go for it, so we've tweaked it or replaced it based on your feedback. That's what I'd want to hear. I mean, I'd still be skeptical. Don't get me wrong, because it is a marketing blog at the end of the day. But it would be, it's just there in the tone. It's the wording gives away. The wording's it speaks volumes, shall I say.
I'll never understand the whole, like, doing, like, the stuff they're doing with the dribbling and everything, and they still can't get a dribbling system as enhanced or as good as what we had in NBA 2K16.
Yeah.
With the full size, the back side size ups and the front size ups, and still the great feeling of dribbling in place, just by flicking the stick and whatnot. Built from the ground up, enhancements, next generation. I just want to point something out, just to talk about, like, next gen consoles. I feel like they've been kind of a disappointment. I'm playing MLB The Show 20. My brother and I have a season on it. And I went back and forth between that and MLB The Show 21 for next gen. And not only do I not see a graphics jump at all, really, I'm not seeing really a frame rate jump either. And I'm looking, and the menus are a lot worse, and you can't put in your own soundtrack on next gen, all of that stuff. It has less features than what I have in the Show 20. And I'm like, I thought next generation was supposed to be an improvement.
Yeah.
Why? Yeah. Less options? Why does it not look really any better? And why is this being promoted as the next big and great thing? Because I'm not seeing it.
I think that there is a problem with game development these days, and it may not be so much the developers as the artistic direction that's handed down by the suits. Who knows? But sometimes there is that less creativity, and we've talked about that with why they don't make a street game, and why jam games don't come out, why we don't sort of see those kinds of creative ideas anymore. It's jumping on trends with things like my player clothing, and certainly riding the trend of, again, recurrent revenue and things like that pleases the suits and lines their pockets. It's not necessarily about prioritizing that fun experience and packing in those little details, which is not to say they don't work hard, which is not to say that there aren't little details in there, but we have seen that change in the way games are developed and the focus and all these other external factors that play into it. But it is frustrating to see, as you say, supposedly new technology and bigger and better and faster and everything, and maybe you get some better loading times. Obviously, the loading times in 2K21 on next gen, they are genuinely impressive. That you can be in the city in seconds or load into a mode in seconds. I do notice that going back to the old generation, even on a gaming PC, it doesn't load that quickly. So yeah, that is
me $500-$600 for a faster loading times.
That's the point. It's not that in itself. It's a nice feature. It's a nice way. It's a great way of making use of new technology, and it should be a thing, because loading times, instantaneous loading times, it is in itself a nice thing to have. But when it comes down to it, if what you're loading into isn't as an engaging and fun experience, again, it's like great graphics. It's like everything else. It doesn't really matter as much. I get into it quicker, but I kind of want to get out of it quickly too. That's kind of a problem when you feel that way.
The titles that I've seen are just overall not barely a jump or not a jump from the PS4 days and whatnot. And that's not just me. And people are probably like, oh, just appreciate what you have and all that stuff. And there's some truth to that. But at the same time, the games just don't have that appeal anymore in a lot of ways. A lot of different games don't. They don't have that fun aspect, and more so with the NBA 2K series, because we do really enjoy the MLB The Show series, and we do enjoy Madden as well. But, especially with the NBA 2K series, it's not just enjoy what you have. I just feel like the game has so many different frustrating issues.
I mean, the
from
game
an
comes
on.
out every year, which is also a hell of a development cycle. So we have to absolutely have to give it up for that. But you're asking people to buy a new game every year, so it's a lot of money. People, and then you're also implementing mechanics that encourage people to spend money on top of that. Value for money and quality matter, and not just for 2K,
Right.
but every game, and certainly with microtransactions being so ubiquitous these days, it's okay for consumers, just as we celebrate games and to enjoy them, want to have fun. Wanting to have fun and not being able to have fun is kind of a problem as well. Before I get into some other points, here, I do want to mention the quote-unquote strong push made to implement the same quality of improvements on current gen and next gen. I am tempering my expectations for next gen. I'm tempering them even more for current gen, which of course includes the PC port. Hopefully they can implement some, if they have been able to really enhance the next gen version and it does play a lot better, which certainly we're hoping for the best. That's always the way because we do want to enjoy the games ultimately. But if they have been able to achieve that, hopefully there has been a similar improvement. I'm not expecting the identical improvement on current gen, but hopefully they actually have been able to. I mean, you read that and you do wonder how much they've actually been able to achieve on current gen, being a lower priority. But then again, I'm sure a lot of people still do have the current gen consoles. We're still a year into into them being last gen now, or current gen, nomenclature being kind of fluid as it is there. I'm not placing great expectations, should I say, Derek, on current gen.
They need to for current gen. They badly need to fix the player movement. And you know what? A huge red flag for me will be if I boot up NBA 2K22 for the PC and I see a player run down the floor and they're hunched over, like they're like a yeti, like running, like in the woods or something. Like they're you know what running animations I'm talking about. They are running like hunched over, and it's not realistic. I can't even believe that running animation is in the video game. But that'll be a major red flag for me. They really need to work on the foot planning. The dribbling feels crazy already. So the blog has already stated something about, the dribbling being faster. So I'm dreading that. I'm sure that's going to be terrible. But yeah, I don't know. My expectations aren't high either, but I bought it because I get it every year and I mod it. So it's in my inventory.
And look, we will try and do what we can with sliders and suggest ways to optimize fun. That's something, more content that I'd like to get back to doing. In fact, this year it's been on my to-do list with content the last few years, and this year I want to make now that I've moved away from my career experience more. It's something I feel like I really can throw myself into with more hands-on experience of those experiences, those modes, I should say, in the 2K22, and started that with 2K21 and looking forward to continuing that with 2K22, quality permitting, obviously, enjoyment permitting. So a couple of the key points from a fairly comprehensive gameplay blog. The shot contest and blocking systems have been rebuilt. We did hear that in our first blog that was mentioned in the first blog. New snatch blocks and volleyball spikes that didn't happen before. I feel they have happened before, but again, ghost contests have been, the quote-unquote ghost contests have been addressed. Being out of position and failing to get a hand on an opponent's face will give up easy buckets rather than being able to impact shot success through loose proximity and facing away from the ball handler. Again, we'll see how that works with badges, especially, again, adding new ones. But that has been a problem. So if they have addressed those ghost contests, Derek, that is good news.
I think that's a problem that's been in games for a long time. I actually remember my brothers and I used to talk about this in some of the old NBA Live games. If you were on, the offensive player couldn't see you, but you'd be near them, behind them, and jump at them, and it would make a miss. And we would say, well, I was on his back, right? Or I was, and that's why he missed. So yeah, that's I think that's also something that plagued NBA Live 19.
Definitely
as well.
Yeah.
That was one of the problems with NBA Live 19, and it's also a problem with protected shots with NBA 2K17 and NBA 2K16, actually, where there's 4 or 5 feet sometimes between you and the defender, and your player will still fade backwards. and it'll be looked at as a contested shot. And it's like, I should be able to go right up and down.
I do have a concern there, because it's, conversely, properly crowding shooters will force bricks and air balls, which again sounds good in theory, but again, we've seen that with 2K16 and 17 with the protected shots, that it was hard to, when some players will just rise up and shoot the great shooters will just rise up and shoot in the defender's face, not be forced into a fade or a leaner that airballs and bricks badly. I mean, sometimes, of course, they can. Great defense on a great shooter can work out sometimes, but it was too automatic with the protected shots. And so I'm a little bit concerned when I hear that the counterpoint to that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one thing that was frustrating sometimes with NBA 2K17 is you'd be using a great shooter, a really good shooter. You'd think you'd have space, and you'd go up to shoot, and it would force you to fade back, and it would be considered a heavily contested shot, and that great shooter or good shooter would, like, airball it or, like, brick it. Or if you tried to shoot a shot towards the end of the shot clock, and like you said, you as the offensive player were smothered, but you still even had somewhat of a height advantage, and you try to shoot over him, it would be like a brick 99.9% of the time. So no, I definitely have that concern.
You mentioned the rewritten defensive AI, rewrites the defensive AI on next gen. So again, it depends. It remains to be seen what happens as far as what current gen will receive, being the lower priority release. I would have to imagine, because we saw it last year as well. AI anticipating certain play actions and better rotate to take away passing lanes, which is also kind of a concern with the way they can, with the CPU can pull off psychic steals. Emphasis has been placed on filling defensive gaps and playing more intelligently. There's new hedge defender logic for smarter reaction to the ball handler. Players with lower steal ratings will have slow animations when they reach and gamble. Also more dunk and layup strips in 2K22, although I think they're mostly going to be on next gen again. And AI, and I mentioned the AI anticipating certain plays. So they're also talking about beefing up the defensive AI, which has been a weakness. So again, if it has been beefed up sufficiently, that is for the best. But there are those concerns about forcing those, something similar to protected shots. And of course, the CPU being able to play the passing lanes has never really been a problem, because the CPU is really good at that.
Yeah, I'd say that, and you've been playing 2K14 a bit, I'd say that the best balance defensively overall between going by last gen and this gen. Last gen meaning Xbox One and PS4, and then this gen being PS5 and Xbox Series X. I'd say that the best defense mechanics overall and the best AI on that end would be 2K14, 2K15, and 2K16. Yeah. I think those three, they got it the best as far as defensive intelligence by the CPU, whether it be in transition, help defense, on-ball defense. It's the perfect balance between brick wall and side-by-sides. You're more rewarded for good defense, more realistically rewarded in those games. You're not just going to, you're not going to go for a steal and just end up like tackling somebody. I wish they could go back to that balance that they had, back in those three titles.
Unfortunately, I think the online scene plays a big role there.
Yeah, of course it does. I think that's really hurting the 5-on-5 gameplay and overall. But what's funny is I don't understand how sliding, skating even, and whatnot, and slow motion side-by-sides, I don't understand how that can be healthy or accurate or good for the online scene either. So let's ruin the face-up game. That will help the online gaming. Online gamer. Let's make it so when you face up, you drop the ball at any hint of contact, or if you face up, you go into a slow motion side-by-side when you try to attack the rim, or, if you spin baseline, you'll lose the ball. I'm not sure how ruining the face-up game is great for online gaming either.
I mean, I suppose they figure, they see the online strategies that people want to play with, which is not necessarily realistic, and that focus on the meta. And people who want to play an online competitive game, but not necessarily a realistic basketball simulation, it's become a whole battle there, obviously. Again, a topic for a whole show that we could go into that, a deep dive into that, which I'd love to do sometime. You mentioned the dribbling. 1-to-1 basic size-ups have been replaced by 1-to-1 signature size-ups, 50 unique signature size-up packages, 32 unique dribbling sequences, which I believe is referring to as signature combos, 28 unique dribbling styles, including new styles for WNBA players. Smaller players no longer lag behind larger players when they have the same speed with ball rating. They said some new back to the basket moves have been added to enhance post play. No further details on that. The new shot meter. Now, you play with the shot meter off, obviously, but we all play with the same release mechanics. The new shot meter has a make window that will resize dynamically according to the defensive pressure, ratings, fatigue, and the quality of the shot attempt. I do believe that's been implemented before, at least in some ways. In theory, I do like that idea. But we've also seen it play out very poorly with Live 19, where the defenders, especially when controlled by the CPU, could maintain a distance that takes away a green release and force too many misses. But then again, if the ghost contests have been addressed, it's one of those things where this all sounds great point by point, but how will it play together? Because we've seen a lot of great mechanics, great ideas for mechanics, Derek, over the years, but when they've all had to play together and be balanced out properly, that's when there's problems.
How complicated do we need to make this?
Yeah.
Honestly, how complicated do we need to make these games? How many changes do we need to make year in and year out to something as simple as a shot meter? Like how do you know how many different shot meter? I don't even use the shot meter. Do you know how much conversation I've heard around the shot meter over the last few years?
Oh, it's been constant, yeah.
Like, I'm glad I don't use it. Let's put it that way. And I'll just say this: the changes that they're making, they're not going to affect me. I just hope that they're good for everybody else.
Well, I mean, because they will affect you in so much as it's the same underlying mechanics of the release window and everything. So even with or without the meter.
Right, but you know what? I'm just going to go out there and try to play basketball.
True.
So I'm just going to go out there and see how it feels and try to play basketball. And I'm not even going to think about a meter because the meter's not going to be there. And one of the reasons I don't like to use the meter ever is because I want to focus on the player and where I'm shooting and, the defender on me and how close they are. And I don't want to be in my release point. I don't want to be staring at a meter, whether it's at their feet or at their back or, up higher or anything like that. Like, I don't want to be looking at a meter. I want to be watching the action.
And it looks speaking of that, it does look like a very long meter, which was an issue in Live 19, which does concern me a bit, the length of it.
The meter was very long in Live 19. I remember thinking that watching some of the gameplay videos of people that use the meter, and I'm like, damn, this thing is long.
So you can see how it affects the timing, which is an issue.
I think that I forget who I was talking to about it, but I kind of agree with them. I think that one of the games, the meter was under the feet, but it was part of their circle.
17, 2K17, yeah.
Yeah, and I heard that like a lot of people like that.
It's probably my favorite so far, yeah, the 17 meter.
Because it makes sense and it's a little bit out of the way and it doesn't take away as much from the action.
It has some good timing on it as well. No, 2K17, very strong game across the board. Defenders can feasibly contest dunks at the rim. That was an issue last year. The contact dunks were kind of automatic points unless you caught them really early in the jump. Shot IQ will play a major role in shot success. Ratings and stick skills do matter. Forcing up bad shots will result in more misses. We will see how long that lasts before people complain about it online and it gets nerfed, possibly, or boosted, as the case may be. Holding sprint and down on the pro stick will force an aggressive skill dunk when a defender is under the rim, as long as you have a strong dunker and some room to take off. And there's going to be timing meters on alley-oops and aggressive skill dunk attempts. This is on next-gen only, so again, a next-gen exclusive. Finishing lobs will require pressing the shot button with good timing. So they're adding some timing to alley-oops and the aggressive skill dunks.
Playgrounds, too.
Yeah, I was going to say, sounds a lot like Playgrounds.
I don't... What are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing? Like, I'm sorry. I know I'm kind of... in my opinion, there's absolutely no reason to have a timer on an alley-oop finish. We've never needed it before. I've never seen anybody asking for that. I think it's another layer that's completely unnecessary.
Of all the things on this list, I can see that's the one that's going to be taken out of 2K23 due to a lack of popularity, much like shot aiming last year has been taken out.
Right. Hell, it might be patched out in this cycle.
That's
you
true.
Yeah. Out in the 2K22 cycle. I'm not sure how that's going to work. How is it going to affect me? That might affect me a little bit. When I'm playing with my brother and we're playing on the same team or, I'm throwing oops. As the person who throws the oop, I'm going to be also the person that's receiving the oop, right? So do I have to time it as the recipient as well? And how fast, think about how fast oops happen in real life. How the hell are you going to time that as a player?
See, that's my problem with the shot aiming on layups that we had last year. That you have to say, hold left to make a move left and perform that move, but then rotate the stick around and aim it at the same time, all in a very quick layup in the paint where you're also trying to elude a defender. That's why shot aiming, we just need to get away from that idea, at least in the paint. It's just not viable. And I think this is going to be the same kind of thing.
Right. How are you going to time? Okay. So let's say they wanted to make timing on an alley-oop. Let's say they wanted to say, well, as the ball's traveling to you, you need to time it. Well, how the hell does that make sense in a realistic thing? Like,
Yeah.
I don't, like, all right, so now are we timing the motion towards the ball? Like,
Yeah,
it doesn't.
You can see, it's one of those things to say, oh, well, pulling off an alley-oop takes great timing. So you can see the logic behind it. But in practice, how well does that work in a video game?
Right, exactly. Exactly. So we'll see what happens. Maybe there'll be an option to turn it off, hopefully. If not, maybe it's better than I think it's going to be. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of the first things that gets nerfed, fixed, or thrown out.
It wouldn't surprise me either. It is funny how people look at these mechanics that aren't necessarily a great fit for video games and say, well, you want realism, don't you? It's like, it takes timing to perform an leaps. Well, if I want realism, NBA players also get a lot of free clothes in my career, so we should get free clothes. Well, moving right on from that point, certainly we don't want to talk about that realism anymore.
I say that about shot aiming, though. It's like, well, didn't you want realism? Well, there's absolutely nothing realistic about the shot aiming system in NBA 2K.
That's the point, yeah. So it's
like, don't tell me that feels realistic or is realistic in any possible way whatsoever.
And I get what they're going for. Like, conceptually, I get it, but in execution, making it feel good and be realistic and actually be enjoyable, it doesn't always mix. There's a reason some things are done the way they are with basketball games. You mentioned the 80 badges, 17 new ones. There are badge loadouts that was mentioned in previous blog and for WNBA, and it is the case with the NBA as well. More information about badges presented to the user while creating a build. They've updated the build. They're saying there's more balanced builds. We shall see. We have heard that before. Dunk celebrations have been added, much to the similar to the green release celebrations as seen in previous games. And this is kind of cool that a player's dunk repertoire can be customized using the dunk style creator. So you can create a custom dunk package, which, I mean, it may be a small thing in the grand scheme of things, but I do like that. That does sound cool.
No, it's a good touch. I'll say again, though, how many complaints have we heard about cheese and artificial boosts and all that stuff, and people thinking that there wasn't a real skill gap, and then 2K and Desire and all that stuff, all the preaching skill gap and everything. Hey, let's add 17 new badges. Like, it doesn't line up with what they say. Okay, like, it just that alone does not line up with the message that they're trying to get, say, as far as skill gap and what they're preaching and everything. But yeah, cool. Dunk creator. Yeah, no, that sounds good. Yeah, I'm not really thrilled about this blog.
Oh, thrilled, so. Yeah. And this is a next-gen exclusive. Takeover Perks, modifiers that are exclusive next-gen, can be unlocked to enhance your takeover abilities. They're going to be a surprise. No further details on those as well. We've talked before about how we feel Takeover has become a very kind of almost an arcade-style mechanic, very overpowering in the online scene. So I see Takeover Perks, and I'm thinking, well, I'm quite happy that I'm moving away from my career and the online scene, because that sounds like they're going to be very overpowered. Maybe they'll be cool, maybe they'll be balanced, but the takeover system, yeah, I'm not a big fan of it, so that doesn't fill me with confidence either.
Yeah, it's turning basketball gaming into something other than basketball. It reminds me of turning Super Saiyan, Takeover.
Yeah.
It's like from Dragon Ball Z. Who's asking for that?
Well, it's the online gamers that play other games that like the enhancements and the boosts and
Fortnite?
And and augmentations and things like that, as they'll call them. I think it appeals to them because it's all part of the meta, right? But if
it's not, and it's another thing that takes away from the skill gap.
Takes away from basketball.
Another thing that takes away. It isn't basketball. It's another thing that takes away from true skill gap. But they keep preaching skill gap. It's like mind games. It's like they're playing mind games. That doesn't make any sense if you think about it. Skill gap, preach skill gap, our resident X and his O's. Oh, look, skill gap, all of this stuff. And we wanted to make sure that you had control and all of that. And then all of a sudden, hey, we're going to add 17 new badges. Oh, we're going to have 80 badges, 80 artificial boosts in the game. Oh, we're going to have Takeover, where you turn Super Saiyan in the game and you become superhuman. Like, it's just mixed messages in mind games. And I think it's just hurting basketball video games.
And there'll be there'll be some shills that are out there that'll say, well, there's a skill gap now. Get good. Not when there's a meta like this with so many augmentations and boosts and whatever you want to call them.
I think that people are going to be super disappointed when they first get their hands on 2K22. That's the way it's looking. You're going to just see a lot of that negative feedback right away again, and people saying, I can't. You'll see those comments where people are like, I didn't think it could get worse than NBA 2K21, and here we are.
It is getting harder for the shills to shill without losing some credibility, shall we say. But not all.
Shills, no. Especially, and you'll see the next makers doing the same thing. I mean, that's not really negative on this portion of the podcast, but I want to remind you that, what I was talking about in the first half. So
we have to cover both, and we've talked about this before. I've written articles about it. We've discussed it on the podcast. Is that we have been through multiple preview seasons. We've heard a lot of these things before in not so many words or almost identical words in some cases. So we want to see the proof of it. But we also we can see these things, and you can see when something's going to be a problem, can you not? You can just see,
shadowing. Yeah, you can see it.
There's just like, I can see this could work really well, but I can see it conflicting with this or that, or I can see if it's not tuned this way, if it's tuned that way. Yeah. So hoping for the best. We don't want to be sitting here smugly in a couple of weeks' time saying, well, we said it sucked, then boy does it suck. No, because we spent our money on it for a start, and we want to get enjoyment out of it. But it's fair to be skeptical. I would rather be skeptical and in a couple of weeks' time say, you know what, I had my concerns, but this is working really well. And I certainly hope that way. But I do see that, and these are concerns.
Just us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just us being that way. There's history.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is based on many years, over a combined 50 years. That makes me feel very old. There are you and I playing basketball video games between us. Over more 50, 60 years between us of this, and covering games and going through multiple preview seasons. It doesn't mean we are infallible. That is not what we're trying to say. But we have seen these things. We've been around the block a couple of times. We've seen these things happen. We've seen developer blogs, and we've seen the language that's used. So, yeah, if you're more... We don't want to rain on anyone's parade, but we do feel that skepticism.
Yeah. I want people to enjoy the game.
Yeah.
I just want people to enjoy basketball gaming again. There's a lot of frustrating things going on in the world. There's a lot of people who, I don't know, feel very isolated, and there's people who feel lonely and all of that stuff. And, breaking out a basketball video game should be fun.
We need escapism,
and it should be something that you look forward to, and that gives you more joy than frustration. And that's really what we want. And we just see, what's been going on. I talked about that IGN review, the reception to the trailer. We talk about, all the comments and the reviews from users and whatnot over the last few years, and all the frustration that kids have and people have, young adults have and whatnot, and old adults like us,
old heads
have with some of the recent titles. I just want people to have fun with the games, because that's what it's supposed to be about.
Undoubtedly. And we will finish up with the MyTEAM blog this week. So MyTEAM Draft is back. We heard about that alluded to in previous previews and hints on Twitter and whatnot. It's a multiplayer mode, multiplayer online. When you start a new draft, you get 7 packs to open and choose 2 cards to keep from the first 6 packs. A 7th pack is a featured pack, which can contain 3 cards, including the latest themed releases. Competing in MyTEAM Draft will guarantee a prize of a league pack and a single pick on the draft exclusive extension prize board. Other prizes will be available in cycle with the seasons. Seasons approach through everything with My Career, My Team this year, and of course the W online. Season 1, the grand prize for MyTEAM Draft is a pink diamond Glenn Robinson. That is the big dog, Glenn Robinson the second, not or junior, rather than his son, who is in the NBA at the moment. So Triple Threat Online now features the 100. At the beginning of each TTO run, gamers will have 100 points. After each game, the amount of points you gave up, win or lose, will be subtracted from the total of 100. Once you hit 0, you're back at the bottom tier of the prizes. And one of the aims of the 100 is to allow every player to at least reach the second tier of prizes, even if they lose every game. So I mentioned those together, Derek, because it does sound like they're giving people an opportunity to play with some really good cards and earn them, and also to get some prizes without being elitist about it. And look, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who say, oh, get good, and it should only be for the best players. But I like that they are allowing people who are playing the mode to be a little bit more rewarded and have an opportunity to at least get some better rewards. And if you're really good, if you really are elite, you'll be able to get all the great rewards. But it's a little bit kinder to people dipping their toe in to those modes. And that's something that's been missing with the gatekeeping, the toxicity, and the elitism. So I do like the sound of that.
As it should be, yeah. That's what they should have been doing all along. I mean, we talked about how great the reward system is in NBA Jam on Fire Edition for Road Trip, right? Talked about how fair that is, and how the unlockables work, and how it's not a crazy grind to get there, and whatnot. I know that's a little bit different than opening packs or getting free packs and everything, but the point is that the getting to that reward isn't a unfair or frustrating experience.
It feels rewarding,
right?
Yeah,
reward, exactly. And then I like that idea, and that's a +1 for them. Especially if it gives people, that better start, playing that mode. And it may get more people into that mode as well. And that's probably what they're hoping for.
And of course, the cynicism comes through and thinking, well, if they're getting into that mode, then they may end up spending some more money on that mode. But look, if the prizes are better and the reward system is better, if people can just play it, no money spent, and still have a good time, then so much the better. And MyTEAM is actually pretty decent about that, if you, as long as you know how to work it. And maybe, again, that's some content that I could focus on, playing a bit more of MyTEAM. I know you're looking to get into it a bit this year as well, is that we could focus on, okay, we could produce some content rather that is, okay, how do we have a really good no money spent experience, and how can we work the system with the XP to maximum advantage? But even then, you can get in some grinding. But we'll see how it works out. But I do like the sound of that. Likewise, the weekly and moment challenges have been replaced by pickup and skill challenges. Skill challenges are similar to the old weekly and moment challenges, including replicating real life feats, statistical goals, that kind of thing. Hit 9 threes with Klay Thompson, whatever. Getting the win in the skills challenges is optional. The challenge will actually end when it's achieved. Rematches are also now allowed in order to quickly retry a challenge. So if you're getting towards the end of the challenge, you're not going to reach the goal, you can hit rematch and just start over again without having to exit out and go back in. Good idea there. It's possible to complete skills challenges out of order, so you don't have to go through sequentially. That's pretty good as well. And the pickup challenges involve daily games against teams that are generated according to your current lineup. The better your lineup, the more challenging the generated opponent. Conversely, if you're still building up your squad, the generated opponents will be weaker in order to provide a fair matchup. Again, it sounds like they've taken some feedback on board there, because I like the sound of all of those, the way they've been implemented this year. Very accessible.
Yeah, it sounds like they're trying to make the competition for that mode, the experience for that mode less frustrating. It sounds like what they're trying to do is make the start a little bit more fair, so people can get into it right away, and then also make it so when they connect with people, they're not blown out of the water immediately, that the matchups are more fair, and that they're matched up with somebody who's on their level as far as like rosters or whatnot. So from the sounds of it, I mean, the MyTEAM enhancements are good, and that's probably the only other mode outside of, Play Now and MyNBA that I would probably be getting into, so that's nice for me. I mean, I'm just really hoping that the PC version is enjoyable for me, because if the PC version is enjoyable for me, I'm going to be getting into modding. And one thing about the PC version that's kind of nice is when you get a new face in there, say you get a new face for Kobe Bryant, that face is going to be what he looks like in MyTEAM.
That's right.
So that's a benefit to playing MyTEAM on PC as opposed to playing it on the Xbox Series X.
It's all assets that can be reused for modding. Absolutely. Spotlight challenges, including both 5v5 and 3vs3 games, similar to last year. 20 Spotlight challenges at launch, featuring the 4 NBA 2K22 cover players. There's going to be event cards, which include MyTEAM events, which represent MyTEAM events and also great moments in the league. Going to be special collectible cards there. There's also going to be two separate $250,000 MyTEAM tournaments this year for people who want to get into that. One for current gen and one for next gen. There's going to be cross progression between current gen and next gen. Doesn't apply to PC because there's only one generation of game on there that's ported to PC, of course. But if you are on the same console family, You will share the VC wallet if you do get two versions for whatever reason. If you're a crazy collector like us, or if you start out on current gen and then do get your hands on a next gen console for birthday, Christmas, whatever in the near future, and decide to upgrade, you can carry that progression, all that progress over to the next gen version, and it also goes back to current gen as well. There's also going to be holo player cards, which are the rarest cards to collect. They have identical stats to their regular version, but they're special. They're tied to special challenges in the agenda. So you can pull, and they're not just going to be the Galaxy Opals and the Pink Diamonds and the Dark Matter cards, Derek. You might just get a special version, kind of like when you'd pull a from a pack of real cards back in the day. You'd have that special, it's like a silver version of the regular player card. So it's kind of be like a special version of that.
Yeah, I mean, I used to love pulling refractors.
Yeah.
It was always worth a little bit more and always a really cool looking card. Or you pulled like a jersey card.
Yep. It's gonna be like that basically.
Like a jersey or something like that. Yeah, no, man, that makes me want to buy a pack of cards, like a box of them.
That's, yeah. There's also going to be a card grading system similar to real life card collecting. Grade when you send your cards away to get graded, they'll come. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to work. It does sound a bit fishy, to be honest, but anyway, one might say that the real collecting trade, as we talked about last week's show about rising prices in video game collecting. But when you get a card graded, when you use that graded card, it will get you bonus MT, which is the in-game currency, of course, in games that they're used in. Shoe cards no longer have specific boosts. You can assign your own boosts to shoe cards using the new MT Shoe Lab. Each shoe colorway has bronze, silver, gold, and diamond variants. And there's going to be 5 choices for MyTEAM starters: Jason Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, Nikola Jokic, Trae Young, and Zion Williamson. And after you evolve the starter cards, so evolution cards are back again, after you evolve them, you have a chance to open another pack and get a second starter card. So for the first time, you can actually collect all 5 starters this year, Derek. In previous years, you would just be able to pick a starter pack, and that's who you started out with and that player. Now you can actually collect the whole set. So they've kind of, I guess people looked at those gaps in their collections and say, oh, I wish I could have gone with that other player. Or so if you do put in the work to evolve a player, which involves using that player and hitting statistical goals, you will actually be able to earn all the other starter packs as well. So there's a lot of stuff to collect.
Well, let's go back to the shoes. Can I put like actual wings on them and fly and dunk it? Because that's the direction the game.
Yeah, you do wonder, yeah.
Or do I have the option of having like flames come out of my feet, like my shoes, and then just like propelling that way to the hoop? Like, I don't know. I'm just wondering of all the things that they're going to be putting in there.
Well, that is one thing I don't like about MyTEAM. I don't like badge cards. I don't like shoe cards that enhance. Again, that's sort of sometimes undermines the need to augmentations. You've already got OP cards anyway, so then to be able to augment them further, yeah, I'm very iffy on that, I have to admit.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. No, that lineup thing does sound, again, that lineup thing that you had just mentioned, that does sound more fair to the gamer. Again, you can get, like you said, collect a whole starting 5 as opposed to just one player from that pack, or like hope to get a good player from that pack. I mean, yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff does sound good, and it's from a mode that I used to be fond of.
It's funny because it's a mode that has the most potential to be a money gouge, and obviously it's a huge money maker for 2K, yet they do some cool stuff with it. I do appreciate that.
Yeah, I kind of got sick of the mindless challenges, but it sounds that got a little bit better in 2K21, but I just really could never get into it because the gameplay was so poor.
I mean, it's like any mode. You got to enjoy the game as well.
Yeah, and I didn't. I told you all the reasons on a prior podcast as well. I didn't really enjoy MyTEAM last year.
So this is something I do like. Bronze and silver player cards have been removed. All players are now gold or higher, which means that you have your standard set of gold, and then you can have some better players in the early gem range, right up to the dark matter, of course. The MyTEAM base set is going to be a collection of current and all-time great players that will be available at launch, which includes some historical players, such as Michael Jordan, making Legends more accessible much sooner, albeit not the most powerful version of their cards, but there's going to be a base set where you can get some historical players as well as the current players, and no one's going to be lower than gold. I like that approach too, because unless you were specifically challenged to, and I like that they did that with the agenda last year, Derek, but unless you specifically had a reason to play with a gold and silver player, a bronze and silver player, you weren't going to do it because they were terrible. They were useless cards.
No, I mean, I think it's good. I just, whatever makes the on-court action more fun and at times more realistic, etc. I can agree with that because the bronze and silver players were so slow and so low rated in so many different areas that you couldn't even cheese with them.
No.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, I can definitely agree with that. I also like the idea of making the bigger legends and bigger names available and more accessible in the early stages of MyTEAM and not making people have to grind to death or hope for, getting one in really low pack odds, etc., like in past versions. So, no, I think that's good.
I mean, you're still going to have those powerful cards, your pink diamonds and your galaxy opals and dark matters of your souped out Hall of Fame Michael Jordan theme, whatever theme they do this year. They usually do a Hall of Fame theme or GOAT theme or something like that for the top. Once it gets really crazy, a few months into the season, they'll do that. But I do like because I like to get a Michael Jordan card every year of some description, and I've been able to, by working the auction house, get a few pretty good ones over the past couple of years, and that's been fun. But just to be able to get a favorite player fairly easily. It's not going to be the most powerful version if you to take online, for example. But if you want to play with a Michael Jordan card, or Scottie Pippen, or Yao Ming, or Tracy McGrady, Allen Iverson, there's going to be quite a few players available in the early going in the MyTEAM base set. I like the idea because you get to play with a version of that legend. It's not going to be the best one, but you have to work for that, or work the auction house or whatever, or pay as they're probably hoping you do. But I do like that they're giving that opportunity to play with some better players, or a lower version of those better players early on. I like it.
That's why I can never get into MyTEAM against like multiplayer. Like here's why I could never like put my team on the floor against another MyTEAM is because the minute somebody does like a Curry slide with Shaq and strokes a three,
yeah,
like I wouldn't do it.
Rage quit. It's time. I'm out.
Right. Yeah. I wouldn't put up with it. I wouldn't do it. That's a killer for me. And unfortunately, I've seen videos up like that of David Robinson dribbling out there like he's Tim Hardaway, like unbelievably fast and ridiculous, and then throwing up like a 35-foot three and smoking it. Like that's not fun to me. That's terrible. So that's why I'll never get into that portion of MyTEAM probably.
Undermines defeats the purpose of getting specific players when they can all kind of do everything and do the same thing. We've talked about that before, the dumbing down of MyTEAM. So unfortunately that will be a thing as the year goes on, but if you are just playing the offline modes, the single player modes, then that is something that you can enjoy or avoid as the case may be. So any jersey can now be selected as the home uniform. Both in away and alternate uniform are also designated to avoid color clashes. Court floors and arenas are now separately selected, so you can have deeper customization in that regard. Alternate court cards are also now collectible, like your City Edition courts, like that great Miami Vice court that the Heat have. Not only the jersey, but also that alternate court is also collectible. Earning current team branding cards now involves playing with players from a team and completing lifetime agendas rather than going through domination as before. Collector levels are back with rewards for hitting different milestones, and of course, once again, you've got seasons and whatnot. Streamers, real players, and celebrities will be verified with logos similar to My Career. That's, yeah, okay, cool. And agendas return with seasonal challenges and many opportunities to earn XP, and tracked agenda items that you choose to track items on your agenda will pop up during gameplay to remind you of current goals that you're shooting for. So there's some good stuff there.
Yeah, great. I mean, the celebrities and all of that stuff have just become like, it's become a thing now. It's become a very important thing for NBA 2K, and to keep the influencers and the YouTubers and the popular, people, keeping them in the game with cyber faces and being usable or presented in some way in the game. And I have a feeling that's going to be the way it is if this Next Maker thing blows up too, where they're going to be putting Next Makers in the game and all of that. Although I will say they send you a pretty nifty jacket. You saw the Next Maker jacket.
I did, yes. Yeah.
One of the influencers on YouTube on Twitter that I'm connected with, they got accepted to the Next Maker program, and they posted pictures of them in the Next Maker jacket, and it's pretty cool looking. Not a bad looking jacket.
I imagine they'll have the in-game version in My Career as well. One would assume for their My Player.
Maybe I'll find that in the files. Maybe I'll mod myself in the game with a Next Maker jacket. How about that?
So all in all, the gameplay blog some of the leaks and the trailers, gameplay, I'm feeling more skeptical about, and I want the proof to be in the pudding, as the saying goes. I do want to keep an open mind, but at the same time temper my expectations. And certainly with the MyTEAM, I mean, there's always potential that things won't work out as well as planned. The best of intentions can still go awry, of course. But I do like the sound of what they're doing with MyTEAM this year. It does sound like they're trying to get more people into the mode with some fairer rewards. One thing I do hope is that they up the token rewards and the MT. They are a bit low, especially with the auction house being out of control. The hacking on PC and the selling of MT through third-party services has really destroyed the auction house, just destroyed the market, really. So that's something I hope they can address. That's not mentioned in the blog. We'll see how things go with that situation. But having that proper reward system is so important for that mode that obviously people are going to pump money into that mode, but so that it can be equally viable for those that don't. It sounds like they've made a few steps in that direction. That what they're doing with the modes to be stimulating challenges with the daily generated pickup challenges sounds like a good idea. So if the gameplay works out and it's well tuned with the sliders and everything in MyTEAM, which of course, like my career, we can't change. I'm looking forward to checking that out. It's a mode that, apart from franchise, as I move more away from my career, MyTEAM will probably be that other mode that I play as you're looking to do. So no, I like the sound of it. I'm interested to check that out.
Before we close the show, I have one question for you.
Sure.
So, the NBA 2K22, you install it. What is the first thing that you're going to do when you put it on?
First thing that I do, 90s All-Stars versus 2010s All-Stars exhibition.
Okay, so you literally go from like the start screen right into a play now game?
Usually yes. Yeah, I may. Sometimes I go into practice and just get a feel for the controls, especially with no demo. I might do that actually this year. But as far as the first proper thing I'll play will be a play now game, exhibition game. How about you?
Cool. Okay, so for me, the first thing I always do is go into the rosters. So that's a little bit different than what you do. So basically what I do is I go in, I check to see if there's any updated faces. I check to see, if they made any of the retro teams deeper, like if they got rid of some of the fakes. I like to see the layout of the roster screens. I go into edit player, etc. At times I'll check tendencies and ratings. Like I'm going to go in, one of the first things I'm going to do is go check David Wesley on the classic teams and see if he still has a 95 on alley-oop tendency.
Can I make a prediction? But he will.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, and I might have to make another social media thread on that. So the first thing I do is go into the roster screens, and then what I do is I get on the sticks with my brother, Nick, and we go against each other with a couple classic teams. And so that's usually what happens.
No, it's interesting that we have the separate ideas of what to do. Yeah, we are very similar gamers in many respects. We do have that's different first things that you do. I think everyone does have those rituals, much like as we were talking about a couple of shows ago, that everyone has their go-to exhibition teams.
Right, exactly. And we talked about players that are our go-tos. Like for me, for years, it's been Kobe. He's probably the most fun player to use in video games for me, just because of everything he could do on the court. And obviously for classic players, Jordan and Kobe are probably the best to use in video games. So those are usually my two go-tos. And obviously Drexler, because he's always been one of my favorite players. Yeah, it is interesting. I'm interested to hear from the community too.
Definitely get that conversation going, and we want more conversation around gameplay this year, as we've said many times before. Next week's show is going to be coming out after the game is released, so we won't really be covering the news. We'll be covering, I'm sure we'll touch on the blogs. We'll be talking about the game itself coming out next week, of course. So next week's blogs that people can look forward to are about the city, the neighborhood, my career, and my NBA will be covered next week, and probably some more gameplay here and there as well. I'm guessing that a few tidbits here and there, I'm sure, going through Beluga's Twitter or whatnot. But those are the previews that will be coming out. But I'm sure we'll refer to them, Derek. But yeah, we'll actually have it this time. By this time next week, we will have a game to talk about.
It's still exciting. I want people to understand that. I obviously have been thrilled about the developer blog, and I have some critiques. And the 2K's really frustrated me over the last couple of years with what they've done to consumers and their unfair practices, and the way the game is played actually between the lines and how it's felt on the sticks and everything. But there's still an excitement when you get a new game. So there's always an excitement to go into that roster screen for the first time, or put the players on the floor and see like the new cut scenes and new different presentation elements and all of that stuff. Like there's still an excitement to it. So I actually took work off from that. I have vacation time I need to use, so I have like Thursday and Friday off this coming week, and I also have the following Monday off. So I'm going to be trying to get in some time modding and playing the game.
The funny thing is that originally I was actually going away next weekend for a friend's a Bucks weekend, a stag weekend, a bachelor weekend, depending what you call it in what everyone calls it in their neck of the woods. The last party before he gets married, basically. But with the current lockdown in Australia, we shall all be staying home. And indeed, unfortunately, my friend's wedding has been postponed due to the current situation with the pandemic here. But on the bright side, that fun will be going ahead at some point. And since I will be home with a game, I shall be playing a lot of NBA 2K22, I'm sure, and starting my review because I do want to do a written review again. It was kind of snark week for me with my articles this week, Derek. I'm not sure if you noticed, but everything from my fake review to my Friday Five, a bit of snark this week. I was a little bit snarky, but
I like it because it gives the articles kind of
bite.
I don't know, flavor. Yeah, life and flavor, and I don't know. Yeah. It's you. So
used properly, too much snark is like, okay, yeah, whatever, mate. But used properly, I think it's one of those things that can add that bit of a comedic touch. And certainly when we do, it lets off a bit of steam with frustration, and we can all commiserate together. But that being said, I am looking forward to the game, hoping for the best. And since I will be home here in lockdown in New South Wales, I shall be playing a lot of 2K22 and then drafting my review to get back to written reviews, but also getting on the podcast to talk about with you. And yeah, hopefully we've got some good things to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a full podcast, as it always is.
Either way. Yeah.
Either way. But and the Parsec games don't stop, people. We'll still be doing that.
But a lot of news to cover this week, so it has been a bit of a longer show than usual. Almost getting to our old school 2-hour episodes, Derek. Just under that.
Yeah, it's kind of my fault in that regard, just because I wanted to talk about the NLSC NBA Live 10 tournament and then also touch on some modding stuff and everything. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of exciting things going on at the NLSC right now. So it's kind of hard not to talk about it.
It is, and sometimes, as always, we appreciate everybody for tuning in. We won't do a mailbag segment this week. We did get a question this week about, just wanted to give a quick shout out about Basketball Classics mods. It's great to see other people taking an interest in Basketball Classics and the idea of modding it. Hasn't really happened yet, but I mean, that's. I would love to do this, Derek, and shout out to Josh and Dave if you're listening to this episode. I would love to do like a super dunk shot custom roster for Basketball Classics, where I do replace Jordan with Mickey Jansen and just do all the fake names, like full on proper comical fake names for them. That's an idea I've had for Basketball Classics.
Yeah, I did see a mod for a court where they had the Celtics logo in the middle. I do know that for Basketball Classics, and I want to say that it was posted on the NLSC and the other basketball game section. I'd have to go look at that again. I can't remember if it was Razor that did that before he boarded on with 2K and whatnot. But I know that it is moddable, and I want to say that I've seen a court for it. But I don't think anybody's done a real deep dive into the possibilities of modding that game.
Yeah, but pretty much. But it's open to it. We have a category in the download section for other basketball games, so we definitely invite any mods for anyone who wants to work that. And hey, we might throw some tutorials if we get into it ourselves. And so many projects to undertake, Derek, that sometimes it's difficult to get to all of them. But the shout out to Day at _D3PO on Twitter for sending that in. Did want to get to that, especially being about Basketball Classics, and we love that game and what Josh and Dave have done with it.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have them on the show again.
As always, the open invitation. If they're crazy enough to come back and talk to us for a fourth time, then we certainly will invite them back with open arms. But with that being said, that has brought us to the end of episode number 391 of the NLSC podcast. As I said, a bit of a longer episode this week. Lots of news to cover. Lots of fun stuff going on in the community. But yeah, we really do appreciate our listeners, Derek, for tuning in and sticking with us through a long show. And yeah, I hope they've enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And just keep an eye out on YouTube and whatnot for more gameplay videos from the NBA Live 10 tournament and, any other game. that we're playing on Parsec with the community and whatnot, and games that the community is playing in general, because, like I said, that's what it's all about. It's about community, and it's about fun, and that's what it should be about.
Absolutely, and that's what we want to celebrate on the podcast, as much as we said on the show, how we do want to critique and to criticize when necessary, but we do want to celebrate and enjoy as well, and we hope that has come across this week. The podcast comes out every Sunday, of course, on the NLSC, which is nba-live.com. We're also on all the major podcatching apps and platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, to name just a few. We're also on, I believe, Amazon. What are they called? Amazon Music?
Amazon Audible.
Right, yeah. So we're on that. We're on a few platforms, all the major ones, I believe. On those platforms, search for NLSC Podcast, look for our logo, and that will be us. And, of course, we always appreciate reviews on, hopefully positive ones, on the Apple Podcasts platform. And since we are wrapping up here, Derek, what are your socials and any other final words this week?
No, once again, thanks for tuning into this podcast, and thanks for tuning into the NBA Live 10 tournament, and thanks for, all your submissions for the top 10 and everything. Let's keep this going, and, keep all the community content coming, because that's what it's all about. As far as I go, tune in to Holding Court with D4 3. We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, CLNS Media, and Amazon Audible. There's that Amazon Audible thing again. You can find me on Twitter, where I'm the most active, at D4384, and at D43G, which is D43 Gaming Channel. I'm on YouTube, D43 as well, and I'm on NLSC as a team member, D43.
As I mentioned at the top of the show, I am Andrew in the forum, as I have been for 20 years now, and Andrew NLSC on Twitter. The NLSC is on Twitter and Facebook at the NLSC. We're on Instagram, NLSC Basketball. Our YouTube is youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. And of course, give a look to the NLSC itself, nba-live.com, for everything we do for basketball video games. But yes, that's all for this week, so thank you once again for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Derek.
Go get buckets, everyone. Somebody stop me!